apologise. I'm doing this interview whilst I'm in the car, but I can guarantee you I am not driving myself.
We don't need tickets.
No.
Malola soifua manuela wa fionga. O amal ni Taeao?
Today will be a good day. I've got a busy day today, and I'm looking forward to meeting our Samoan Presbyterian community at 9 o'clock this morning at their biennial whono.
All right, let's get into it this morning. What's your take on how the haka protest by Te Pāti Māori's MPs was handled in the Parliament? Do you think referring it to the Privilege Committee was the right move?
I think there's some questions to be asked here. I think there's a point. The haka is culturally acceptable in New Zealand. The way in which it was conducted was opposed by the Speaker. And yet we're quite used to the way in which the haka is undertaken in other settings. If we think about the haka on the sports field, they do walk up to the other players. It is quite normal that it would be undertaken in that way. So I think there's a conversation to be had here about tikanga, and I can understand why Te Pāti Māori are concerned about the handling and the fact that they have been taken to the Privileges Committee.
So do you think Parliament needs to update its processes to better respect tikanga Māori?
Yeah, I do think there needs to be a conversation here. As I said, in other settings, it would be acceptable that it was done in this way. And so there does need to be a discussion about it. I don't think that the Speaker or anyone else can just draw a line and say that Te Pāti Māori were wrong here and that they need to be punished. There does need to be a discussion. I mean, of course, Te Pāti Māori have chosen not to show up to the Privileges Committee, but that's because they asked for some specific requests with that hearing, and there was no negotiation or compromise available to them there, and I think that's unfortunate.
Thank you, Honourable. Now, David Seymours has proposed reducing regulations in daycare and preschool settings to cut down on red tape. What's your view on that proposal?
Well, I don't think that David Seymours should have any responsibility or be in charge of our children in any way. He has really, screwed up the lunches in schools program. He's proposing here less regulation, which could result in the safety of our children being put at risk in ECE settings, and also undermining the qualifications that are required of ECE teachers. I don't think he understands the importance of this level of education, and I don't think he takes seriously the early childhood education sector.
So if Labour were in government right now, how would you support early childhood educators while also making sure children's safety, well-being and learning aren't compromised?
Well, those regulations that are in place are really important to ensuring the safety of our children. So we certainly would not be looking at minimalising those. We have always, as a political party, supported the qualifications of our early childhood education sector and actually had thresholds in place in terms of what's acceptable with the numbers or proportion of qualified early childhood education teachers. We've also supported increased pay for our ECE teachers. This is a profession.
Yes.
It's not just a babysitting service.
Yes, I totally agree. And we need more voices to advocate for our ECE sector. There's been a lot of public concern around moves to remove references to the Treaty of Wangi from legislation. What's the Labour stance on this?
It's just another step backwards from this government. Now, over the decades, what we've seen as New Zealanders, and New Zealand has progressed, there's more an awareness and an understanding and respect for Te Treaty. For us as Samoans, we came to this country and we're respectful of the fact that Māori are tangata whenua. And I believe that we've always been respectful of the Te Treaty that is in place. So why do we want to cause, or why does this government want to cause division and start questioning, which is effectively what they're doing, the legitimacy of Te Treaty, when so many New Zealanders have moved on, moved forward, progressed, and actually have a heightened understanding and respect for it.
Awesome. Great to hear that. With the cost of living in the supermarkets today, we're still hearing from families who are struggling to afford groceries and rent. What would Labour be doing differently right now to ease that pressure?
Yeah, I think that this is one of the biggest broken promises from this government. They went into the last election and they assured New Zealanders that they would do something to address the cost of living issues that New Zealanders faced, and they haven't done anything. If anything, it has got worse. We had put in place things like free prescriptions for New Zealanders, free or half price public transport for our children and young people. These are policies that actually made a difference with regards to helping out families with the cost of living pressures that they were facing. And then National came in and they got rid of them straight away. Even their package around tax cuts and support for early childhood education has been questioned with recent news that only something like 269 families have received the full benefit of that ECE package that they announced thousands of families would benefit from. So, there's a real dishonesty here, and there's a real disappointment from New Zealanders with the lack of action and the non-delivery in supporting New Zealanders, including our Pacific community, who earn the least in this country with the cost of living.
Awesome. Well, for the sake of time, the government had also pulled back on some climate initiatives, including funding for public transport and emissions targets. What's your response to that?
Yeah, this government are completely out of touch with what's happening internationally on the climate change front, and they are not living up to their responsibilities as an international member of the international community. We can see the impacts of climate change here in New Zealand and in the Pacific region. We're feeling it with the weather events and the intensity of them and the way in which they're affecting our communities and our land and our ways of living. And we can see it in the Pacific with the impact that they're having even on our people's ability to live on the land that they have traditionally lived on for years. And yet here we have a government who are investing less. And in the way they talk about climate change is almost flippant and doesn't seem to be taking it as seriously as what you would expect national leaders to be taking it.
We need actions, yeah? We need more
action.
Yes. So we've seen major staff shortages across the health system and growing pressure on hospitals. What will be the Labour's plan to support our healthcare workforce?
Well, we had a workforce plan when we were in government because we recognised the need to actually invest and have a strategy to have the workforce in place that we need. That seems to have gone out the window. The worst thing is that under this government, they've had hiring freezes in place across our health system and across our hospitals across the country. And so, where perhaps the workforce was available, they haven't even been hiring them when they've needed them because of the funding freezes and the hiring freezes that have been in place under this government. We just can't continue to operate like that. It's dangerous. It's actually dangerous for our families. And we're concerned that New Zealanders are not getting access to the healthcare that they should be because of the lack of funding under this government and the lack of foresight with regards to having the right people in the right places.
So in terms of equity, do you think Health New Zealand and Te Aka Whai Ora are delivering for Māori and Pacifica communities?
Well, the health system hasn't for years, which is why you have to have equity measures in place. This government have fought against that and sadly pitted different groups of New Zealanders against each other. The facts are clear. Māori and Pacific, unfortunately, sadly, but in all reality, die much younger than any other group in this country. And so there are issues with Māori and Pacific being able to access the healthcare that they need so that they can live the same length of life as everyone else. That's why you need equity measures in place. But this government
all right. Hey, thank
you.
you
Oh, there you are. Sorry, you can't out for a second.
Yeah, it was a bit of a technical issue, or probably the internet. But yeah, I've got one more question before letting you go. Essential workers like health and construction are still struggling to find workers. Do you think the government's immigration settings are helping or hurting that?
Well, actually, the sad reality is that I think that we've got a lot of our health workers and construction workers moving over to Australia. We've got people en masse leaving the country because we don't have the jobs in place. One of the reasons for health is that there have been these hiring freezes. And so we've heard, graduate nurses coming out struggling to get jobs, despite the fact we can see that we need more nurses. So many construction and building projects cancelled under this government with the underinvestment in properties, with the slowdown on investments in building our hospitals and a range of other things. And houses, fewer houses being built. And so where are these tradies that we trained up going to go in terms of their work? We're seeing more of them having to go overseas for employment.
Well, thank you so much, Carmel, for joining us today and sharing your insights on these important issues. We wish you the very best of today and tomorrow as well, as we are going to celebrate the Anzac Day. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much as well.
Soifua.